Hello there, world of tankers. Welcome to the channel. I'm your host, Droodles Blitz, and in today's video, I am going to be showcasing how to become a better player, to play like a pro. Today, I did a stream on the AMX M4 MLE54, sat at 20 games with an 80% win rate and 3,800 damage. In fact, we can see those stats right here on the sidebar with my AMX M4. And not only that, yesterday I did a live stream on my Boss Shotgun 25 ton, where I again played at 3,960 average damage for 20 battles with a 75% win rate. And then before that, I did a video on the Jagdpanzer E100, where I once again sat at a whopping 3,900 damage for 10 battles with a 60% win rate. So if you add up the last 50 games I've played on my account, when I'm actually trying, which is what I've started doing on my main account, and then my press account is where I chill, I can comfortably sit around 4,000 damage with 75 to 80% win rate. And these are currently some of the highest numbers on the entire North American server. If you are sitting basically above 3,600 on the NA server, you're within the top 3 players, and 3,800 you're within the top 2. There's only one other player right now that goes around 3,800. So the point being, doing well at this game is very challenging. But as a player who understands the ins and outs of Blitz, I'm going to be giving you some advice on how to play the game like a pro. So we're going to pick a random tier 10, one that I haven't played all too much at least, and one that I wouldn't consider to be the best in the current state of the game, but the worst either. How about we do the FV4202? This is a pretty skill-inducing tank. Now, the first thing you want to do is always properly equip your vehicle. I have been messing around with gun rammer and calibrated shells. We can see my chieftain, well, I guess you can't see my chieftain, but my badger, for example, I have gun rammer on. Certain tanks running calibrated is better. Certain tanks running gun rammer is better. However, for you, running calibrated is the way to go. I performed with my AMX M4 in the last 10 battles. I did rammer, and I also did calibrated for the other 10 battles. For the 10 battles I played with gun rammer, I had multiple games where I could not penetrate opponents. In fact, if we take a look at my replays and we scroll down to the battle I played on Hellas, you're going to see a fantastic example of this. Normally, heat is pretty good, especially with calibrated shells, because it's a 13% buff. So the AMX M4 goes from around 340 mils of base heat to a whopping 383. And what you're going to see here is there's an enemy minnow, and I'm going to play with rammer against this minnow. But what ends up happening is I literally cannot pen the minnow anywhere this entire game because of the fact that I am running rammer. We can see the minnow's armor here. That's what it looks like. So yes, I can pen the lower plate. But the fact that the turret is that strong, I mean, at this angle, the entire turret's red. The hatch is even pretty dang red. And it's a great example to showcase how this game, I was only able to get around 2,500 damage out. It's one of the lowest, actually the second lowest game I played the entire stream. And it was simply because of the fact I did not have the ability to penetrate my opponents. Versus the first game that I played running calibrated shells was a 4-minute battle. And there were multiple instances where running calibrated gave me flat advantages. I was able to penetrate the enemy VK90 with gold quite easily. I was able to cut through the Rhino's turret, and it just felt a million times better. And we can see, taking a look at the post-game results, this was a 6,040 damage game. Believe it or not, this was the highest damage battle I played out of all. So sure, running rammer on certain tanks might go well. Tank destroyers are really the only class of vehicle I can see this being viable. In the rest of the game, I do not see a reason to run rammer. I just don't see a reason. I think it's a waste. There are certain tanks where it might benefit you. Even something like the Type 71, you might say, oh, well, it's got such good pen, running rammer might be the way to go. It's only 125 extra damage. So the first thing is you always need to properly equip your tank. Properly equipping your tank will make you a better player. So, as I said, back to the FE4202. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to have the vehicle properly equipped. So we're going to run calibrated shells to give us more standard pen, more premium pen. We're going to be running enhanced gun laying drive because it gives us 15% better aiming time. And then we're going to finish off with refined gun to have 15% better base dispersion. We're going to pair that With defense system, you need to run defense system. Never run improved modules. Defense system gives you better ammo rack durability, better crew durability, and engine damage durability. Not only that, I usually run improved assembly. Yes, you could run enhanced armor, but I just don't see a reason to. Toolbox is mandatory. You want to run engine accelerator. High-end consumables versus consumable delivery system really depends on what you're looking for. I like high-end consumables because it gives you the ability to just have a longer lasting consumable. It will last an additional 6 seconds, meaning that I have more time to trade with that opponent. Now, it comes at the downside of not getting your consumables back faster, but I still feel like the ability to use adrenaline as long as it can possibly last is the best way to go. So what do we have up against us here? We have an E100, we have a 114 SP2, and a T95 E6. Now, to be good at the game, you need to weigh the options of where the enemy team's going to go. They have a lot of mobility with a Progetto and 4202. They are in platoon, which means I'm going to have to be worried about that. And with the E6 on their team, it means that most likely at least 4 of their teammates are going to be going over towards the medium side. Now, we do have our team supporting me at least, so that is good news, and we can also see that the enemy 6 has not gone over here. That was just a mediocre shot for me. I'm not going to use a repair kit, though, because that Progetto did not want to push me. Okay, well, we're going to reload, and we get a nice shell. Now, you'll notice I swapped to AP there, and the reason why is because the Progetto was only showing us track, which is obviously spaced armor. Now, being a very weak tank, we are able to cut through with his vehicle, and, well, just like that, get a pretty solid start. The enemy FE4202 misses me, and that gives me the opportunity to now move up. And we get a bounce from the grill, although I wasn't too worried about that to begin with. So, we've already done a pretty good job with this game. The enemy team is in a real awkward spot. We get a nice shell into the 4202. And again, we're weighing our options on what exactly is going here. We know that the grill's somewhere in the back, so that is something I'm going to have to be a little cautious about. But right now, the main tanks that I'm going to farm are these heavies across the map if I can. We got one shell into the enemy BZ-75. We're going to chill right here. We're going to aim it on the enemy 100. There you go, another nice 318. Just like that, we've already done about 700 damage to those vehicles. Now, I don't know if they're still there, so we'll take a quick blind shot. May have hit. We can see the grill left, so I don't need to worry about the grill anymore. So we already know where basically all of their team is. So what are we going to do? Well, I'm going to put myself in a position where we can hopefully get the hill absolutely spotted up. So we have our E6 making his way there. We got the enemy 114 detected. Again, I want to fire high explosive, but I know that it's just not a reliable round to cut through an enemy 114 on. So the 114 is going to, well, kind of die, to be entirely honest. He's just getting absolutely bled like crazy. So when you want to do good average damage, this game's already going to be a win. I can see that just by taking a look at exactly what's going on here. So when you want to deal good average damage, you need to think of how exactly you're going to take apart the enemy. And I know that there's an E100 over here. And I know that the E100 is alone. So realistically for me, the best play is to get caught off by the E100. But it's alright, because the T100's on him as well. The E100 bouncing me was pretty lucky, but that's besides the point. We already know where the enemy team is and where they aren't. We get a nice 470 damage high explosive into the T95 E6, and we're going to reload again. We're going to aim it on that E6. There you go. A non-penning 65 damage shell. Unfortunate, but not too big of a deal. We have the E100 over here, and this is where having that high explosive will just obliterate this poor player. The T100 is in a real awkward state, but we got a 500 damage HE into the E100. And just like this, we're already up to a pretty good amount of damage, as we can see in this game. So we're going to aim it on the E100 lower plate, and now I'm going to ignore the E100. While I do feel a little bad leaving my T100 to clean up the scraps at the end of the day, this is how you achieve good damage. We are going to move on to more pressing issues, like this grill. Now, I don't know if we're going to be able to deal much more damage to the grill, because he's pushing up. He's going to try and kill that TVP. We're going to see what exactly happens here. What's the grill doing? Well, we're going to aim in on the grill, and we get a 357 damage shell. And we're already up to 4,750 in this game. So then we're just going to make our way right on over. We're going to aim it on this grill again. There you go. We got that shell out just after our E6. But a really good result. 4,895 damage. And it's a great showcase of how you can take a vehicle like the 4202 and completely outplay your opponents, even if you don't have premium shells. So what did we actually do that game? Well, we did get a little outplayed ourselves by that enemy E100. I had thought the E100 had actually fallen back, but he continued pushing, and if I had seen him in the crossing, that would have been ideally the best situation, but it still ended up going very well for us. So in the beginning, obviously, I'm going to read the enemy lineup. After reading the lineup, the most important thing you're going to want to do is look where the enemy team is driving. We saw at the beginning, the Progetto played poor, so I punished him. We also saw the FE4202 played poor because my teammates pushed up on him, and I also was hauled down. We saw the girl bounced us, we knew where the girl was, and we saw the girl leaving. So we already knew that we had complete control of the hill. At that point, I had a couple options. It was either sit back and farm, or move up and try to take advantage of the enemy. And that's what we did, because in a 4-2-0-2, especially in a winning game, if you see enemy heavies like that E100 separated from the rest of their team, that is where the high explosive and farming potential of this vehicle really comes into its own. And that's what you have to do in a vehicle like this. Obviously, every tank has a different playstyle, but for a vehicle that has Hesh, you need to put yourself in a position where you can use that high explosive to completely farm your opponent. So what are we going to do this game? Well, I'm going to start by making my way into this bush here. This is a really good spot to give me early game information on what the enemy team might do. Now, you usually want to stay a little bit back from that bush there, and just enough poking so that you can detect enemy tank destroyers like that Hori that push up into that spot, and it's obviously already 440 damage right at the beginning of the game. The Hori is not poking, and because the Hori is undetected, that means we are undetected, so I can poke this once again. Now, it would not surprise me if that Hori tried blind firing, and I'm a little nervous because that position the V4 is in is not very helpful to me, but we can see the Hori gets a bounce, and we're just going to wait here. For now, it's kind of an interesting game, because we can see the U100 on the other side of the map, which is not a very good play, and bro's getting absolutely nuked. So we're just going to wait here, and, well, E100's continuously getting just bled and bled and bled, and, well, I don't think he's going to back up much more. I mean, he might. Come on, keep backing up, keep backing up. We're going to take a quick blind shot at that E100. Don't know if it hit, but probably did. It wasn't too hard of a shot to hit. We can see the enemy 183 is making a really interesting play, basically killing himself. We have the VK90 in front of us, and the Hori in the back. The Hori bounces me, which I will admit was a bad poke for me. I shouldn't have done that, but we're fine. VK90 is... I don't want to poke the VK90 to be entirely honest. I'm just going to wait. We have the E50M on the flank again. We have the Hori, and the Hori misses. Not able to hit the Hori myself. You'll notice how passive I'm playing right now. And the reason why is because there's no advantage to playing overly aggressive. We know that the enemy team has a lot of super, super nasty tanks, right? And we know that if I play too aggressive, I'm probably going to get quite heavily bled. Now, we do get spotted by the enemy Rheinmetall Panzerwagen. Ooh, that tank, interesting. Has tungsten and adrenaline, but doesn't really matter to me, because we're still doing fine. We get a nice shell into you. The Kron's aiming in on us. I can't really do much to fight the Kron. There's only 4 tanks left on the enemy team, but we're doing pretty good. Now, I do know that we get spotted for 20 seconds by this enemy tank, because of the fact that it has the... okay, can we not V4? Thank you. But I know that the tank has the spotting mechanic that lasts 20 seconds, so I have to be very careful about that. But we also know that the TVP and grill are on the flat side here. So what am I going to do? I'm going to move right up, and we have the Kron. And if that Kron decides to poke, we should be able to get a pretty easy high explosive, and there you go, right into his tank. And with that grill on the side of this Kron, it's putting this guy in an incredibly awkward state, where he now has tanks on his front, he has tanks on his side. We're just chilling here. We're just going to angle it up, and we aim in a nice high explosive into this enemy Rheinmetall Panzerwagen. I don't think this guy's enjoying our company too much, to be real. Oh, we don't pen that shot, but not too big of a deal. The enemy team's not doing too good of a job right now. We get another shell into that Ponda player. Now he's down a lot of health. And not only that, but we can see the rest of their team is down a lot of health. A nice 450 damage shot into the enemy VK90. I'm not really sure what the thought process was on that Rheinmetall. I mean, I get it. Like, it's a strong tank. I guess it has, you know, DPM and everything, but I just don't understand what the thought was there. We got a nice shell into the enemy VK-90, and now we're going to chill on his flat side. And the reason why is because we obviously have high explosive, which we are able to connect, dealing 380 damage. So both of these games were really good. This was another 4,600 damage battle. And you'll notice how early game we didn't really do much. We played passive. We just kind of waited for the opponents to make a play. And that is how you get good damage out, especially in a vehicle like this that has such good damage farming once you see what the enemy's doing. That's what allows this vehicle to be a beast. I really don't know what this player was doing, to be honest, but we did top on the team with very little effort. So you take a look at both the games we played, right? And it seems like, oh, they were just easy farms. Not much was actually going on. But if you actually take a closer look at the games played and everything like that, it's a lot easier to understand exactly everything that's gone through, right? So we take a look at this Castilla game in the FE4202. And as I mentioned, the beginning of this battle, I'm looking at the enemy lineup. I see they have a 114, I see they have an E100. I predicted that with an E6 200 LT, Progetto, and enemy FE4 202, especially with those two players in platoon, that we would have a lot of action on the medium flank. However, as we saw, only 2 tanks went to the medium side. And the Progetto did not play very well, and judging that the Progetto was in platoon with the FE4 202, I could also assume that the FE4 202 wasn't going to play very well. With the Progetto already basically killing himself, it was over for him before it even began. So with that, we already claimed this side of the map. I knew that the grill was somewhere in the back because he had shot me, so I had to be very cautious about that. And the other reason why I'm not over-poking this 4202 is because the heavy tanks across the map do have the ability to shoot me if I do over-poke, and we can see those heavies here. So as I said, at this point I had the opportunity of either staying in this position and trying to farm out those heavies, or I had the opportunity to move all the way over to the aggressive flank. Now, what I was seeing is that nobody was really going to spot up this position here. And because of that, I knew that I needed to move up. And that's why I played aggressive. Yes, it might have been beneficial to stay back and farm, but even from this position here, I can still sit without being detected. But the moment I saw that enemy E100 making his way towards that T100, I knew immediately that I was in position for a free farm. Because I saw the grill left. I see the 114, I saw the E6, who's still spotted, and that means that this U100 is a free, isolated tank. And this is exactly what you need to do. Now, as I said, I didn't think that E100 was there until he was, but even if the E100 did shoot me and penned, it wouldn't have made a difference. We ended up finishing off this game with full health. So it really did not matter whether or not I got shot by that E100, and we still would have absolutely farmed him out. I knew that I had support for my T100, which, even if he wasn't the best player, was a distraction, and that's exactly what we needed. So we had a 4,900 damage farm. And the second game we played was a very similar idea. Early game, I'm playing passive, I'm gathering information. You can't be the first player to just rush in, because if you are, you're going to put yourself in an area where you are just flat worse than other players around you. And you can't have that happen. So I waited for information. I saw the enemy 100, I saw the E50M, the Hori, and everything else. I saw the enemy 183 rushing, and I had a lot of options coursing through my mind on what I could do. Should I rush the 183 and try to punish him? But if I do that, they've got a VK90 and a Hori. And I don't want to run into a situation where the Hori and VK90 can shoot me. I did make one misplay this battle, which was the Hori had a shot on me. But early game, information is key. So I'm sitting in the crossing, we get a nice shell into the Hori, and now I know that they have a tank destroyer back there. Pretend I didn't spot that Hori, right? That means now I would be poking this and not knowing that they have a tank there. And because of that, it puts me in a really bad spot. So that's why having information is super, super good. Now, obviously, at this point, the Hori is spotted, but I wouldn't have known that if, let's say, he didn't get spotted, and I poked this, got detected for shooting somebody, and then boom, minus 560 off my tank. So that's why you always have to pay attention to what is going on around you. We see the E100 on the other side of the map, but I also see that while that E100 is getting bled, I also have 2 tanks overlooking me, the grill, and I have another tank destroyer, being the the 183 overlooking me. I also have the TVP on that flank. And the reason that's actually really important is because I have a lot more cover on this side of the map than I do on this side. I mean, yes, I do have some tanks over here, but these guys aren't going to help me if something pushes through mid, or the Hori tries shooting at me from back here. So because of that, I knew that realistically the best play that I could make is to position over towards where I have cover for my tank destroyers. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move up over here. Now what's interesting is that Rheinmetall Panzerwagen was not actually spotted. I don't know. He must have driven into that bush, yeah. He must have been sitting where I was, and then when I got spotted, moved around. But the Panzerwagen, obviously, not that scary of a tank. I mean, it has no armor. It's basically an RU-251 in Tier 10. It's currently in testing, but it's just funny to see, you know, that player driving that vehicle, because really just is not that scary of a tank for me to go up against. And that player played it so aggressive, like they were in an STB or something, but it didn't go well for them. But, you know, I noticed at this point that the U100 and E50M were dead. So at this point, my TVP and Grill are just looking for shots. So even if I poke this, right, and this Kron thinks, oh, I'm going to be overconfident, I'm going to poke you, look at what happens. He gets overconfident, he tries to shoot me, and because I have tanks overlooking me, that now really punishes the Kron. So he's now down 1100 health just for that. And now with the TVP on his side as well, it's putting this Kron in a really awkward position because I'm on him, and the TVP and everything else is on him. I'm not sure why, as I said, that Rheinmetall Panzerwagen was playing so aggressive. But now, look, the Kron's being shot again. He's already down to a one-shot, and I do try hitting the Kron. Shell goes a little high, but you can see how just playing aggressive here, and now having the TVP flanking, has completely screwed this team over. Because now they've got a tank on their side. Of course, the Grill didn't really make the best play pushing in, but it was already over for the enemy team at this point, because I had conserved my health until I needed to play aggressive, and everything else fell into play. The only thing I do want to see is if I actually hit that blind shot on the 100. I think I did. He got spotted with less health, and yeah, we did 436 Heshpen, so that's pretty nice. But as we can see, a lot of the games that I play, it's not entirely hard to do well. You just have to play a little bit passive. You have to take advantage of your opponent's misplays, bleed them for it, and then with the health you've conserved at the end of the game, bleed them out further. And that's exactly what we did here. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about this information. It's pretty basic, but if you know what you're doing, it will 100% give you advantages. Read the lineup. Look at what they're going to do, stick with your team, and focus on bleeding out the weakest links. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye!